This is a syringe of solder paste and a solder paste applicator. Now the syringe has a Lurlock type fitting that this applicator needle screws into, and it comes with a cap that screws into the Lurlock. But I didn't want to have to take off the applicator tip and put the cap back on every time I stopped using this syringe. So I designed and 3D printed a cap that fits over the end of this and caps it off and protects the needle tip when it's not in use. So now I can just put this away with the other soldering tools. This tip is a very simple and quick design. I'm going to show you how I designed it in ONSHAPE, and it's a great starter lesson for how to use ONSHAPE to make practical 3D printed parts. This part was printed in 95A durometer TPU, which makes it flexible and also allows it to flex over this outer diameter here, such that it can be designed to be a little bit smaller and flex over it and hold on to it very securely. These are the important dimensions that I needed to take to be able to model it. So the outer diameter of this Lurlock fitting is about 10.35. So making the inner diameter of the part 10 will make sure that it's a snug, tight fit. The length of the OD of the Lurlock fitting is 8 millimeters. The clearance distance that I want here until the tip becomes smaller is about 18 millimeters. The total clearance distance for this applicator needle is about 30 millimeters. If your applicator needle is a different length, you'll want to change this dimension and leave some clearance. I want the cap ID smaller around the dispenser needle body, so 8 millimeters is about good for that. This dispenser needle measures 1.27 millimeters, so I want that hole to be a little bit bigger than that. The 3D print will probably make the hole smaller, so I want to leave enough clearance for the 3D printing process such that it's not too tight on this tip. After you pull up ONSHAPE to create a new part in ONSHAPE, you're going to click on Create up here, New Document. I'm going to call this Solder Cap Paste Demo. It's going to open it up, opens up a new part studio automatically. So for this object, we're going to be sketching on the front plane. And the reason is that this cap is like a little rocket ship, and the top is the ground or the launch pad. And so we're going to sketch the outline of this little rocket ship and revolve it. So we want to sketch that outline on the front plane. So here you can see a preview of what that outline looks like. So now I'm going to select the front plane and sketch. And then I want to make sure that nothing is selected. I can click on the background to make sure that I've deselected everything. And right click and view normal to sketch plane. Now I'm ready to sketch. First, I want to set up some construction lines. So I'm going to select line and then construction. And we're going to do a center line right here. And then if I don't want this line again, I'm going to click escape, select line, construction again, and we're going to select a base construction line for starting the width of the base. Now I'm going to sketch the first line that's going to be the ID of the part that goes around the OD of the Lurlock fitting. So I'm going to select line, click on this point here, go up, and finish that, and escape to finish the line tool. Before I go any further and make more sketches, I first want to dimension this so I can make sure the scale is good. So I select this line, I select this center line, construction line, and then if I go on this side, it's going to make a radius dimension. If I go on this side, it's going to make a diameter dimension because it's going across a construction line. So I want this diameter dimension, and I'm going to make that 10 millimeters. So you see how that made everything that I've sketched so far a lot smaller. So now my scale is more accurate, so I can start sketching from here. So I'm going to add another dimension to the length of this, which we measured to be 8 millimeters. And I can drag this center line up. So I'm going to select the line tool again, and I can start sketching the rest of the sketch. So I'm going to start here at this point, and I want it to step down to the diameter around the body of the dispensing needle. So that's going to be about 18 millimeters long. And then I click there, and then I drag out again at an angle to step down again. And then I click there. And then this is going to be the part that goes around the tip. So I click there and click on the center line. And then I'm going to click on these 2 points, and I want those to become coincident. So it's going to bring that center line up to the top there. So now I'm going to add some dimensions. So this sketch that we have here is going to be the inner dimensions of the cap. And since there's not really any special features on the outside of the cap, I can leave this as a single line rather than having a wall thickness. And then when we revolve it, we can revolve it as a thin feature and add a 2mm wall thickness to it. So from here, I'm going to use a dimension tool, and I want to add diameters to this. So I'm going to come over here to add a diameter, 8mm. And then for the tip, I'm going to add a diameter. We measured the tip to be about 1.3mm. I'm going to do 2mm just to account for the expansion of the 3D printing material and such, and make sure that the tip fits in there well. So the length of this section, we wanted to be 18mm. And the length from the end of the lure lock fitting, click there, to the tip, we want to be 30mm. Now let's dimension these angles. So I'm going to make these angles 40 degrees, which will be very easy for the 3D printer to print the overhang at 40 degrees. So to dimension these angles, I click on one line, the vertical line, then I click on the line that I want to dimension the angle, and then click again and enter 40 degrees, and then the angle is dimensioned. So now all the sketch features have turned black. That means that everything is properly constrained and everything has a dimension. So now I'm ready to revolve this sketch and turn it into a solid body with a wall thickness. So I'm going to click check to finish the sketch, and then I'm going to click on revolve, and I want to select thin feature, new, and my wall thickness is going to be 2mm. So enter 2 there, and I'm going to select this whole sketch because only the features I want to revolve are solid lines. All the rest of the lines are construction lines. So I can just select that. Then I'm going to click here in this revolve axis menu, and I'm going to select the center construction line, and that's going to be the revolve axis. There we go. Right now this thin feature wall is going inside of the sketch line, so I want it to be towards the outside. So I'm going to click on this arrow here to flip the wall, and you can see now that the 2mm wall is on the outside of the sketch. So click check. And now we finished the basic cap. Now, I did learn from using this cap that I wanted to add some features to make it easier to push on and pull off with your fingers. The first thing I'm going to do is add a little flange down here. So I'm going to go back to the sketch. I'm going to select a line. I'm going to draw a line here off at an angle. And then I'm going to draw a very short vertical line. Hit escape to get out of the line feature. Now I'm going to go to dimension, click on this line, click on this line, and I want this to be 40 degrees. And then I want the length of this line to be super short, 0.1, because the purpose of that line is just to make a vertical and flat bottom feature. Otherwise, the feature will have an angled bottom if I just left this angled line. And then I want the height of this angled line to be 2mm, so I select both endpoints, and I drag the dimension out until it shows me a vertical dimension, and I enter 2mm, and everything is black and fully dimensioned. So I'm going to click sketch, and there we go. Now we have a flat bottom feature that makes it easier to push on and kind of guides the tip in. And now I need another feature to make it easier to pull off. So now I'm going to select this front plane and make a sketch on the front plane again. And right click, view normal to sketch. And I want to add a feature here to make it easier to grab and pull it off. So I'm going to select this cylinder here, and I want to reference the intersection of the cylinder with the plane I'm sketching on. So I'm going to go to the menu and select the intersection tool, and it created reference lines on both sides of that cylinder that intersect the sketch plane. So I can hit escape to exit that tool, and I won't need this one on this side, so I can just delete it. I'm just going to use this one over here. So I'm going to select the line tool. I'm going to draw a line from this endpoint here, and then I'm going to draw a little vertical line, and then draw another angled line coming down. So I'm going to select the dimension tool, and I want both of these lines to be, again, 40 degrees, 40, 40, and then I want this to be really short, 0.5 millimeters. Now the OD of this feature is yet to be constrained. So I want the OD to be about the same as the OD of this down here. So I can select this face, and then click intersection. And again, it's going to give me 2 lines on both sides that intersect the sketch plane. I'm going to delete this other one over here that I don't need. So I'm going to turn this line down here into a construction line. So select it and click construction. And then select this line here. And I'm going to make them coincident. Now, this is not going to make them touch. It's just going to make them in line with each other. So there we go. So now all of these have turned black and they're all properly dimensioned. I can close this sketch, and I want to revolve the sketch area I just made. So I'm going to go to Revolve. I'm going to click on Solid, New. I'm going to click the sketch region and the revolve axis. I can still use the revolve axis from sketch 1. If it's not visible, you can click on this eyeball over here to make it visible or hide it. I'm going to make it visible. And I'm going to click that as the revolve axis. And it's going to revolve that around. So I can click check. And boom, I have my little rocket ship here that has some features to make it easier to push on and pull off. So just to make it a little bit nicer and make the transitions smoother, I'm going to use the fillet tool and set the radius to 5 millimeters. And the control is just distance in this case. And I'm going to select these intersections where I want to add a fillet. And there we go. We smoothed out those hard corners. I could go one step further with another fillet and smooth out this area also. Check to make sure that everything's hollow on the inside. We can look at a cross section. If I click on the front plane, go over here to camera and render options, section view. It's going to give me a cross-sectional view. If I right click, view normal to sketch plane, then I can see a view that's perpendicular to the cross section and just make sure that everything looks correct. If I want to exit the section view, I can just right click, turn off section view. And so now it's time to take this to the 3D printer. So I'm going to be using the Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro 3D printer. And so I'm going to export this part from ONSHAPE. So down below the feature tree on the left, you have the parts menu. And I'm going to select that part, right click it, export. And I want to make sure that the format is STL. I usually put an angular deviation of like 0.5 here to adjust everything else. So I customize that to make the circles more smooth. Otherwise, sometimes the circles can be kind of pixelated. And rename that to solder paste cap demo. Export it. So when it exports it, it's going to put it into the downloads folder. Now I'm in Elegoo CURA, and I'm going to drag that file from the downloads folder into Elegoo CURA. It looks like it's already in the right orientation, so I don't have to like reorient it. If you need to reorient your part, you can use these orientation tools over here. This looks good. So for my profile, I already have fine TPU 95A settings. I'm going to go ahead and slice it so you can see. So I'm going to go through these settings quickly so you can see what settings work best for printing this. So I'm going to use a 0.2 layer height, 0.25 initial layer height, and 100% layer line width for the initial layer. Wall thickness is going to be 3 millimeters, a 7 line wall thickness. And that's an unnecessary amount of wall thickness for this part. But what it does is it makes sure that everything is solid. Because the walls are designated to be so thick, it's all going to just make a solid part. So the other important things are infill density. I have that to 99%. Gyroid, I could be using concentric for this. Concentric is a good infill for this. So let's slice that again. But the infill is really going to be irrelevant when the wall line count is so thick for such a small part. All these print temperatures are set to 230 C. The build plate temperature is 40 C. So it's good to have a low build plate temperature for TPU. It gives better bed adhesion. The flow is set to 105%. I find that TPU usually benefits from a little bit higher flow. The initial layer flow is 125%. This guarantees good adhesion to the build plate. Print speed is 60, infill speed 60, outer wall speed 60, 60, travel speed 90. So it's good to keep this travel speed pretty slow, especially for the initial layers, so it doesn't yank anything away from the build plate. Initial layer print speed is 20 millimeters per second. This is very important for good bed adhesion. Enable retraction, 2mm retraction distance, 30 millimeters per second retraction speed. Avoid parts when traveling, avoid supports when traveling, Z-hop when retracted, Z-hop height of 1mm. Cooling, I just have enabled print cooling. You don't really need that for this TPU. No supports, no brim for bed adhesion. I don't want to have anything extra to trim off afterwards, especially TPU. It's a pain. And that's about it. So now it's time to save it to the SD card. Something I find that's important to do with this Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro 3D printer is to set the Z height before every print because it changes. And not only that, you want to actually preheat everything before you set the Z height such that everything is adjusted to the right temperatures that you're going to be printing at. So I go in here and I preheat the TPU, make sure it heats up first, and then start the print. Okay, everything's up to temp now, so I'm going to go to level, confirm, put my piece of paper there so it makes it easier than trying to slide it under the tip. Now I'm going to check the bed level, see it's really loose. I need to set it down. Okay, once you get to the point where you can pull the paper, but you can't push the paper anymore, that's where you want to stop, right there. I can pull it, but I can't push it. So then click Save, Confirm. Now I can go to Print, find my file. So these caps work well for the shorter needle, but what if your solder paste or flux paste has a longer needle, like this one came with some longer needles? So it's really easy in OnShape to add configurations such that you can easily change the dimensions for different lengths without having to create a new part. So I'm going to show you how to do the configurations for different length parts. To add some configurations to be able to quickly change the length of this model for different length of tips, you go over to the right hand side and you click on Configuration Panel. Okay, so right under where it says Configurations, there's a drop down menu. Click on List. We're going to have two configurations right now. I'm going to call this one Short and the next one Long. And if we have more configurations, I can start being more specific as to the names. So I'm going to add some configuration features. I'm going to go here into the sketch and I'm going to change this length. And I also want to change this angle. So I can select both of those things simultaneously and you see them show up here. So this distance and this angle. And then once I'm done, I click up here on Done. And now I can change these. So for the short, 30 millimeters and 20 degrees, that's good. For the long, I'm going to change this to 53 millimeters. And we didn't see a change because it's still in the default configuration. So over here on the left above the feature tree, you see configurations now. You click on that drop down, you can click short or you can click long. And now we're going to see that it changes between the two. So the long one, and I also want to change this angle to 7 degrees. There we go. So those are the two dimensions that I configured. I can close this configuration panel and now I can switch back and forth between them over here above the feature tree just by clicking short or long in the drop down menu. Something else I learned while making these is that this wall thickness that goes around the lure lock fitting doesn't need to be as thick. It needs to be thinner so it can stretch easier over that lure lock fitting to put it on and off easier. So if I'm going to change this wall thickness down here, at this point I should probably go back to the first sketch, initial sketch, and add the outer features to the sketch because I've added other outer features to it and I can incorporate all those into the single sketch, including this different wall thickness, rather than hacking them on later. So I'm going to start down here and add a line coming out here, a line going up, a line parallel to this other line, up to here. Now I can bring this outer line all the way up here since I want this other thickness to be 2 millimeters and just make it 1 millimeter around the lure lock fitting. Bring this down here, come up to the top for the tip, over, and then down to close it off. So now you see it's grayed out. That means it's all closed off, so it could be rotated or extruded. So now I'm going to add some dimensions, and I still want this wall thickness here to be 2 millimeters. 2. That makes this wall thickness here 1 millimeter. This is a driven dimension, so it's going to be grayed out. I can't control it, but I can see it. And then I want to make these two lines parallel to each other. So I'm going to click on the parallel feature tool up here. Now those are parallel. And I'm going to constrain these 2 points in the same horizontal plane. So I'm going to click on horizontal. Now those are constrained horizontally. Make these 2 parallel. And these 2 are going to be 2 millimeters apart. 2. I'll make these 2 also 2 millimeters. I want this cap to be 2 millimeters. And now that constrains everything. And now rather than having a separate feature for this finger pulling area, I'm going to integrate that into the first sketch. So now I'm going to draw that shape here connected up to this point in a vertical line back to the surface. And I want to make this 30 degrees, this angle 40 degrees, and this 0.5 millimeters. Then I still want this to stick out the same width as the bottom flange. So I'm going to make those 2 coincident, those 2 lines, and there we go. Everything is constrained now. So there's a lot more dimensions in here, and there's multiple areas too, but with OnShape, it doesn't really matter if there's multiple areas. You can just select all the areas you want to do the revolve. So I'm going to finish that. So now I'm going to fix the revolve. It's no longer a thin feature, it's a solid, and I can click on faces and sketch regions to revolve, just sketch 1. I want everything from sketch 1. And there it is. So now I can delete this sketch 2, delete this revolve, and fix these fillets from earlier. Now let's take a look at the cross-section view. So I select a plane that I want for the cross-section, or you could just even select the cylinder and it'll do a cross-section through the cylinder. I'm going to select this front plane to be more specific. Go over here on the right side to the view cube, click on that drop-down menu and go to section view. And then there you go, it shows a section. Click on front. You can check this here. That menu will go away, but the section view stays until you turn it off. So you can right click, you can edit section view or turn off section view. You can also go back here in the menu on the right and turn that off. But this section looks good now. It's thinner down in the area of the lure lock fitting, so it'll take less force to stretch that open and put it over. And now I have more control over the shape of the outside and the inside using fewer features in the tree.